Welcome to 59 Minutes. I'm your host, Connor Dugash. On March 11, 2011, an earthquake, magnitude 9.03, occurred off the east coast of Japan, sending tsunami waves to the cities of Sendai and Kesennuma, among many others. After the tsunami, a nuclear power plant in Okuma, Fukushima, was considerably damaged, sending nuclear radiation throughout a 20-mile radius. These are real accounts of the aftermath. The first interview is with a nuclear scientist. Nice to meet you. Now tell me a little bit about yourself.
Nice to meet you too, Connor. My name is Dr. McLennan. I have been working with the power plant for about 20 years now. I'm the lead scientist in charge of the nuclear engineering plant.
Now, do you mind telling me exactly what happened to cause this?
Once the plant actually felt the effects of the earthquake, it went into shutdown mode. However, when the tsunami flooded the area, about 3 feet of water went to 3 of the reactors. And when this happened, the reactors completely lost their power. And then once they lost their power, they started to melt down, where the radioactive material began to heat up and decay quickly into the atmosphere.
Very interesting. Now, could this have been prevented?
Well, actually, one of the factors that made the meltdown so severe was that the reactors were so close to one another. If reactors 1, 2, and 3 had been spread apart further, then we would not have seen a reaction as severe as we did.
Now tell me, Doctor, what precautions were taken to protect the citizens?
Well, immediately evacuations were taking place. Eventually, there was a 20-kilometer radius that had been evacuated. In the meantime, citizens were still told to stay inside of their house, cover their mouths, and not to drink any water.
And what adverse health effects did the meltdown cause?
Well, among many things, there's an increased risk in cancer in all of those who were exposed to the radiation. There's also been documented cases of infertility among those and increased thyroid count.
I see. Now, what is being done today to help the area?
Well, the predicted cleanup time for the area is around 40 years. Currently, all the soil is being picked up and moved to different locations because it has been so radiated. We are currently trying to put the plants into complete cold shutdown and take care of the fuel rods so that no more radiation will be leaked into the atmosphere.
Now tell me, Doctor, personally, how do you feel about nuclear energy?
Well, nuclear energy is a lot cleaner than coal because it doesn't put any CO2 into the atmosphere. However, the environmental risk of a nuclear meltdown is much more severe than the risk of a coal plant. For that reason, I think nuclear energy should be taken only if we have the technology to ensure that these types of meltdowns will never happen again.
Thank you for your time, Doctor.
Thanks for inviting me, Connor.
Up next, we caught up with the factory worker at the Fukushima power plant. At his request, we will keep his identity confidential. Thanks for joining us today. If you don't mind me asking, what is your name?
Robert, and I'm a factory worker at the Fukushima Daiichi plant, and I also later helped with the cleanup.
Now, what was that day like?
Well, I remember I was working at around 3, everything started shaking a lot and everyone started to panic quite a bit. So we all tried to leave and go find our families, and it was just a lot of chaos in general.
So you leave and you go home, but what did you do next?
Well, I found that my family was safe, and from there I stayed home for a couple of days, and they needed people to volunteer at the plant to help clean up, so I went back and helped, and we stayed there for roughly a month.
So the media keeps using the term the Fukushima 50. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the Fukushima 50 were basically myself and 49 other workers who attempted to help clean up. Now, the 50 is a bit of a misnomer because there actually ended up being much more of us, like firemen and other people like that. But it was just everyone aiding in the cleanup, and most of them were... The conditions of the plant were actually pretty severe. We had to actually sleep on the floor of a radiation-proof room for about a month. No showers, no shaving. We lived off of basically biscuits and small amounts of water. We even had trouble getting other supplies like radiation detectors, so some of us would have to go in without that, and obviously you could hit huge radiation spikes within the plant, and that's not good.
How do people react to you since the accident?
It's been sort of a mixed reaction since, more recently the government finally thanked us about 18 months later for our job, but a lot of people still kind of blame us for the whole accident in general, so it's been kind of difficult. I mean, if people know who you are, they don't want to sit by you on the bus, they want to be in the same room with you, they're afraid of all the radiation, they think you're going to cause them to get cancer or something, and that's a big reason that a lot of us have still remained anonymous. We're just kind of terrified to see what people are going to say to us.
What is your personal opinion on nuclear power?
Well, clearly from times like this we can tell there are many dangers with it. But at the same time, we're running out of other kinds of fuels, and this is still a fairly promising energy. I just feel like after this it's going to be very hard to convince people of that.
Very interesting. Well, thank you for your time, and good luck to you.
Thanks for having me.
Our final guest for the evening is just an ordinary Japanese citizen who lived very near to the nuclear power plant. Thanks for stopping by, Rito. What were you doing when this happened? I was working in a restaurant, and we all felt the earthquake, and we were immediately knocked to the floor, and there was a lot of structural damage and some minor injuries, and when I could, I immediately went home to check on my family, but it was very hard to get in contact with them. Were you separated from your family? Yes, briefly for a moment of time. I was separated from my wife and daughter, and we were all getting tested for radiation poisoning, but a lot of my close friends and family members still haven't found their loved ones, and they're separated now in the chaos that is surrounding our community. What happened when we were able to stay in our home for a few days, and then we were told to evacuate on March 25th, and so we were sent to evacuation cities, but they were extremely hard to get into because everyone assumed that we were contaminated with radiation, and so we had to find a way to get these certificates that proved that we weren't contaminated. And it was just a very stressful time because everyone assumed that we were going to get them sick, and I felt that I was disconnected from the Japanese. Do you plan on moving permanently? I don't believe I can go back anytime soon because I really don't believe the air will be clean in time, and my daughter is already showing signs of abnormal cell growth, and I just don't want to put her at risk for any further contamination. What is your personal opinion on nuclear power? I can't say I like it much because I've seen the damage that it's caused my family, my community, and honestly, I don't know much about nuclear power plants or that kind of energy, but I feel like there should be a much safer alternative that isn't so harmful to my community in times like these. Thank you for talking to me today, Hiroto, and I do wish you the best of luck. Thank you for letting me on your show to tell my story. Thank you for joining us at 59 minutes. That is all the time we have for you today. My name is Connor Dugash. Join us next week when we sit down and talk with Twiggy the skiing squirrel.
The Fukushima disaster has sparked a social movement in Japan. The country is divided between people who are completely against nuclear power, since they've seen it destroy their families and loved ones, and people who are for nuclear power, as it is a cleaner alternative and provides jobs for many. The country even has gone so far as to have a 60,000-person protest against nuclear power on September 19, 2011.
Despite the disaster turning people against nuclear energy, there are those that are still in favor of it as a viable source of energy. Learning from this event will be an important step in improving our ability to safely use nuclear power.
Events like these have shown that the social movements against nuclear power in Japan and across the world show nuclear power as dangerous to health and safety of its citizens and its community. A turning point for Japan will be in the future when they decide if they still wish to continue the growth of nuclear power throughout their country.